At 68, I thought I had seen every shade of disrespect until my daughter-in-law refused to let me eat the dinner I had largely paid for. That Christmas Eve, I drove to my son David's house with the back seat loaded. I brought wrapped presents for the grandchildren, a heavy, honey-baked ham, and 3 bottles of imported wine. The air in their suburban house smelled of pine and expensive cinnamon candles. Rachel, my daughter-in-law, met me at the door. She didn't take my coat. She simply grabbed the wine and hurried back to the kitchen, fussing over the table settings. David sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up to mumble a greeting. I ignored the chill, walking over to help set the silverware. For the next hour, I stayed out of Rachel's way, quietly folding napkins and watching my grandchildren play by the tree. I wanted a peaceful holiday. When the food was finally ready, Rachel called everyone to the dining room. The table looked beautiful, overflowing with the ham I bought and the side dishes she made. I waited for David and the kids to fill their plates before I reached for the serving fork. Suddenly, Rachel's hand clamped down hard over mine. I looked up, confused. Her eyes were cold, her smile entirely fake. "You didn't pay for anything, Mom," she announced, her voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. "This is our home, our holiday. You don't deserve even the leftovers." The room went dead, silent. David stared at his mashed potatoes, refusing to make eye contact with me. My 6-year-old grandson paused, his fork hovering in the air. I stood there, feeling the cold metal of the serving fork beneath Rachel's tight grip. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply let go of the fork, picked up my purse from the side chair, and looked right into her eyes. "Enjoy your meal," I whispered. I walked out the front door into the freezing night. Behind me, I heard David mutter something under his breath, but nobody followed me. I started my car, gripping the steering wheel. Tomorrow, Rachel was going to wake up to a very different reality. The drive home was eerily quiet. Snow had started to fall, coating the empty streets in a thin layer of white. I didn't turn on the radio. My mind was too busy racing through the past 5 years, categorizing every compromise I had made to keep the peace in David's house. When I unlocked my front door, the warmth of my own home wrapped around me. I didn't bother taking off my boots right away. I walked straight into my small home office and turned on my desktop computer. The blue light illuminated the dark room. I pulled out my financial planner. Over the years, I had quietly subsidized their lifestyle. David never made quite enough to support Rachel's expensive tastes, so I stepped in. I thought I was helping my son build a foundation. Instead, I had funded a monster. I logged into my banking portal. First on the list was their family cell phone plan. My name was the primary account holder. I clicked Suspend All Lines. Next was the auto insurance for Rachel's luxury SUV. I had covered it as a temporary favor 3 years ago. I canceled the policy effective at midnight. Finally, I navigated to the secondary credit card. It was meant for groceries and emergencies. I checked the recent transactions, a designer handbag, premium spa treatments, and the very cinnamon candles burning on her dining table right now. I locked the card permanently. It took exactly 14 minutes to untangle my finances from their lives. 14 minutes to erase 5 years of quiet servitude. I shut down the computer, took off my boots, and made myself a cup of chamomile tea. For the first time in a long time, my chest felt completely light. I went to bed and slept deeply, completely undisturbed. When morning came, I knew the fallout would be swift. The trap they built for themselves was about to spring. Christmas morning dawned bright and bitterly cold. I woke up at 7, made myself a plate of scrambled eggs and toast, and sat by the living room window to watch the neighborhood birds at my feeder. At exactly 8:15 a.m., my iPad lit up with an incoming FaceTime audio call. It was connected to David's email address. I took a slow sip of my coffee before pressing accept. "Mom, please, No, Rachel's voice panicked through the speaker. Did you do something to the phones? We have no service. David had to connect to the neighbor's Wi-Fi just to make this call. Good morning, Rachel, I replied, my tone flat and even. Merry Christmas. Mom, stop. The phones aren't working. We were supposed to call my parents in Florida, and I checked my email. Why did I get a notification that the car insurance is canceled? What is going on? David's voice echoed in the background. Mom, come on, it's Christmas. Turn it back on. I'm just following your rules, Rachel. I answered calmly, setting my mug down on the windowsill. You made it very clear last night that I don't contribute to your household. I realized you were absolutely right. It's your home, your holiday, and your bills. I shouldn't be interfering. You can't just cut us off without warning. Rachel shouted, her panic morphing into rage. We need the cars to go to the post-Christmas sales today. Then I suggest you buy insurance. I offered. Driving without it is quite risky. This is insane. You are being petty because of one little joke at dinner. It wasn't a joke. I corrected her. It was a boundary. And now I'm setting mine. Before she could scream another word, I ended the call and blocked David's email from FaceTime. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the quiet hum of my refrigerator. But I knew Rachel wouldn't surrender that easily. She still had the credit card. 2 days passed without a word. I spent my time reorganizing my garage and visiting a neighbor for afternoon tea. The silence from David's house was golden, but I knew it was only a matter of time before they hit the next wall. It happened on the afternoon of December 27th. I was pruning the indoor ferns when my house phone rang. Only family had the landline number. Andrea Rachel's voice trembled. She was outside, judging by the wind hitting the microphone. I'm at Whole Foods. The cashier is holding up a massive line. Your emergency card just declined. It's not my emergency card anymore. I replied, clipping a dead leaf from the fern. I locked it. Are you kidding me? She hissed. I have 2 carts full of groceries. The kids are in the car. I look like an absolute idiot standing here. You have your own debit card, Rachel. Use that. David gets paid next week. We don't have the cash for these. You need to unlock the card right now. This is child abuse, starving your own grandchildren. I didn't raise my voice. I simply held the phone closer to my ear. You told me I didn't pay for anything. You told me I didn't deserve leftovers. If you can afford to turn away a free meal, you can afford your own groceries. Put the luxury items back, buy the basics, and manage your budget. I am your daughter-in-law, she demanded. You owe us respect. Respect is earned, I countered. And you spent yours. I hung up the phone and unplugged the landline cord from the wall. They were slowly realizing that the invisible safety net they had danced on for years was gone. I knew what would happen next. When phone calls failed, they would bring the fight to my front door. I just had to be ready. The knock came the following afternoon. It wasn't a polite tap. It was a heavy, rapid pounding that rattled the glass panes of my front door. I looked through the peephole. David and Rachel stood on the porch, wrapped in thick winter coats, both looking furious. I didn't open the door wide. I unlocked the deadbolt and stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind me until it clicked. I stood on the welcome mat, crossing my arms against the chill. What are you doing? David asked, blinking in surprise. Let us in. It's freezing. We can talk right here, I stated. What do you want? Rachel stepped forward, pulling her scarf tight. We want our lives back, Andrea. You've ruined our holidays. We had to borrow money from David's boss just to pay for groceries yesterday. The Wi-Fi got shut off this morning because the auto pay failed. I nodded slowly. Those sound like adult problems. You are both in your 30s. Mom, please, David, whined, stepping in front of his wife. Rachel is stressed. You know how she gets. Just turn the card back on and reinstate the insurance. We'll apologize. Okay. We're sorry about dinner. I looked at my son. He wasn't sorry about how I was treated. He was sorry his life had become inconvenient. An apology to get your bills paid isn't an apology, David. It's a transaction. And I'm closed for business. You can't do this, Rachel interrupted, pointing a gloved finger at my face. We depend on that money. You're just sitting in this paid-off house hoarding cash while your son struggles. My husband and I worked 40 years for this house. I replied, coldly. You want luxury, work for it. Don't expect to bite the hand that feeds you and then complain when it pulls away. Rachel's face flushed deep red. She realized she couldn't bully her way inside. She exchanged a look with David, preparing to drop her ultimate weapon. Rachel took a deep breath, her breath pluming in the freezing air. She squared her shoulders, looking down her nose at me. Fine, she spat. If you want to be a selfish, bitter old woman, then you can die alone. If you don't turn those accounts back on by tomorrow morning, you will never see Naya and Hugo again. I'll make sure they forget your name. David flinched. Rachel, wait. No, David. She wants to play hardball. We'll play. Rachel glared at me, waiting for me to break. She expected me to cry, to beg to immediately pull out my checkbook to secure access to my grandchildren. I stared at her for a long, quiet moment. The wind rustled the bare branches of the oak tree in my front yard. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, a deep sorrow for the kids. But I also knew a bluff when I saw one. And more importantly, I knew I could not negotiate with a hostage taker. If that is your choice, I answered, my voice steady, I respect it. I love Nia and Hugo dearly. But I will not buy my way into their lives. When they are old enough, they will find me. Rachel's smug expression shattered. Her mouth fell open, searching for words that wouldn't come. You're bluffing, she whispered. Try me, I replied. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small cardboard box and handed it to David. He took it automatically. Inside were the spare keys to their house they had given me for emergencies. I won't be needing these anymore. Please leave my property before I consider you trespassers. I turned around, unlocked my door, stepped inside, and locked it firmly behind me. I watched through this window as Rachel stood frozen on the porch, completely stripped of her power. David finally took her arm, leading her back to their uninsured car. The game was over. January brought relentless gray skies and the harsh reality of independence for David and Rachel. I didn't hear from them, but in a small town, news travels fast. I was at the local pharmacy picking up vitamins when I bumped into Sarah, a mutual friend of David's mother-in-law. Sarah couldn't wait to spill the gossip. According to her, Rachel was in a complete tailspin. Without my financial padding, the truth of their spending habits hit them hard. Rachel had to surrender her luxury SUV. Without my insurance policy covering it, she couldn't legally drive it, and the dealership demanded it back when they missed the January lease payment. She was now driving David's 10-year-old sedan, while David had started taking the commuter bus to work. They had also canceled their expensive gym memberships and the kids' premium private tumbling classes. Rachel is telling everyone you went crazy and stole their money, Sarah whispered, leaning in close over the pharmacy counter. I just smiled and paid for my items. People will believe what they want, Sarah. Have a lovely afternoon. I didn't feel guilty. For years, I had believed that helping them financially was an act of love. I thought I was easing their burdens, but the truth was I had been an enabler. By removing my money, I forced them to actually look at their lives and their marriage. That evening, I sat by my fireplace with a good book. My phone chimed. It was a text message from David. Mom. Rachel wants a divorce. She says she can't live like this. I read the text twice. I didn't reply immediately. Rachel didn't love David. She loved the lifestyle I provided through him. Now that the ATM was closed, she wanted out. It was a harsh truth for my son to learn, but one he desperately needed. I set the phone down. The dominoes were finally settling. 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang. It was past 8 in the evening and a heavy rain was washing over the neighborhood. I peered through the glass. David stood there alone, soaking wet, his shoulders slumped. I opened the door and stepped aside. He walked in, taking off his drenched coat and hanging it on the rack. He looked 10 years older. There were dark circles under his eyes and he had lost weight. She left, he murmured, staring at my hardwood floor. She took the kids to her parents' house in Florida. Says she's filing for full custody because I can't provide a stable home. I walked into the kitchen and poured him a hot cup of tea. I set it on the dining table and sat across from him. "I'm sorry, David," I offered gently. And I was. No mother wants to see her child hurt. He gripped the warm mug. "Mom, I need a loan. Just $10,000 to hire a good attorney to get an apartment closer to the city. I promise I'll pay you back. I just need to get back on my feet." I looked at my son. He was doing it again, looking for the easy way out, looking for me to fix a mess he helped create. "No, David," I replied softly. He jerked his head up, shock registering on his tired face. "Mom, please." She took the kids. "And you will fight for them. You have a job. You can rent a small place, build a budget, and prove to a judge you are a responsible father. But I will not write a check." "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Because rescuing you is what got us here," I explained. "You let Rachel treat me like garbage because it was easier than standing up to her. You used my money but didn't respect my presence. If I bail you out now, you will never learn how to stand on your own 2 feet." He didn't argue. He just drank the tea, the silence thick and heavy between us. Spring arrived in full bloom, washing the lingering winter gloom away. I hired a contractor to remodel my kitchen, something I had put off for years because my spare cash was always flowing toward David's household. I was standing in the hardware store picking out new cabinet hardware when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Those bronze ones look nice." I turned around. It was David. He was wearing a simple uniform polo from a local hardware supplier. He looked tired, but his posture was straighter. "David," I smiled politely. "How are you?" "I'm surviving," he answered, hands stuffed in his pockets. "I got a second job managing inventory here on weekends. It helps with the child support." "I'm glad to hear you're working hard," I noted. He nodded slowly. "Rachel's parents cut her off too. Turns out nobody likes footing the bill forever. She's working double shifts at a diner down in Tampa now. We're working out a joint custody agreement. I get the kids for the entire month of July. That's wonderful news." He looked at his work boots, taking a deep breath. "Mom, I'm sorry. Not for the money. For everything. For letting her talk to you like that. For sitting there and eating while you walked out. I was a coward." It was the first genuine apology he had ever given me. There were no excuses attached, no requests for a loan hidden at the end. It was just the truth. "Thank you, David," I replied softly. "I appreciate that. Can I bring Nia and Hugo by when they visit this summer, just to sit on the porch?" "I would like that very much," I agreed. We parted ways in the aisle. I didn't offer to buy his lunch, and he didn't ask. I walked to the register, paid for my brass handles, and walked out into the bright spring sunshine, feeling lighter than I had in a decade. A year had passed since that disastrous dinner. It was Christmas Eve again, but this time the air in my home smelled of roasting chicken rosemary and fresh pine from the small tree in the corner. I wasn't spending the holiday walking on eggshells or biting my tongue. I had invited 3 close friends from my book club. We sat around my newly remodeled kitchen drinking moderately priced wine and laughing until our stomachs hurt. There was no tension, no passive-aggressive remarks, and absolutely no one telling me what I did or didn't deserve. As my friends moved to the living room to exchange small gifts, my phone buzzed on the counter. I picked it up. It was a text message from David accompanied by a picture of Nia and Hugo in matching pajamas, smiling in front of a modest, sparsely decorated tree in his small apartment. "Merry Christmas, Mom," the message read. We made the chicken recipe you gave me. It's not as good as yours, but we're trying. We love you. See you next week." I traced my thumb over the picture of my grandchildren. They looked happy. David looked tired, but proud. He was finally building his own life brick by brick without my money paving the way. Rachel was out of the picture, learning her own harsh lessons down south. I typed a quick reply. "Merry Christmas, David. The chicken looks wonderful. I love you too." I locked the screen and placed the phone back on the counter. I didn't feel the urge to send him money for better presents. I didn't feel the need to rescue him from his small apartment. I walked into the living room, taking a seat among my friends. Someone handed me a plate of warm cookies. I took one, closed my eyes, and enjoyed the taste. For the first time in years, the peace in my life was entirely my own. And that brings us to the end of Andrea's story. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's that sometimes the hardest part of loving our family is knowing when to stop carrying their weight. We often confuse endless financial support with love, but true relationships shouldn't require you to sacrifice your own peace or tolerate disrespect. Setting boundaries isn't about revenge. It's about stepping back so the people around you can finally learn how to stand on their own. Andrea realized that she didn't have to beg for a seat at a table she helped build. Sometimes, the most empowering thing you can do is simply walk away, lock the door, and build a new, peaceful table of your own. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever had to draw a difficult line in your own life, I'd love to read your experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set a tough boundary with family? Let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next story. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.